Hi Laura, it's Wendy. I'm so excited to see you on Sheet Critique. And you have provided me with three awesome images to critique, and I love the questions you asked and the things you brought up. So I'm simply thrilled that you're here. I know you are a successful photographer and you were so busy. So I'm so glad that you have specific questions you wanted to ask and that we can work on together. Okay, so you say that your main complaint is your images aren't sharp enough, and that you also want crisp, clean images, and you feel like yours might be drab and dark. Okay, so we're going to go through each of the photos you provided me and discuss these 2/3 issues and talk about lighting a bit, which is one of my favorite things to talk about. Okay, so question 1. Here's the lighting issue. How did you miss the exposure is basically a question. Okay, so we're going to go in. We're going to open these two. We're going to go with number 1. Okay, so you know by looking at this that you say it's dark, kind of drab. And so I would agree that the exposure has been missed here. And I know you personally, and I know you shoot an aperture. So what we have here is a problem of your camera misinterpreting the exposure, because the idea, right, is when you shoot an aperture mode, that you're setting the aperture and your camera is supposed to make a light, perfect exposure. But sometimes that doesn't happen. And so by checking on the back of your camera screen, you can notice right after you take the shot that the photo is underexposed. And this is where you are coming to me for the answer. How can you not get this exposure in the first place? What went wrong? Here's what went wrong. Your camera misexposed. And so it's your job to use the exposure compensation to overexpose and get this a lot brighter. So I would say that is more of a exposure like you're going to want to get straight out of your camera. So Laura, you're going to use that little exposure compensation to kick up the exposure. The problem is that a lot of us as photographers aren't looking at our screen. We're assuming that because we're in aperture mode, our camera knows what it's doing, but our camera is just a computer. It's just trying to figure it out as best as it can, and it's our job to notice that it's not doing its job as well as it can. So use that exposure compensation to purposely overexpose the photo, and you should come out with an exposure more like this. Once you get the exposure right, then you can more accurately judge the white balance, the sharpness, the focus of the shot, because it'll be easier to see. I can't specifically see the focus of this. It looks sharp and clean to me, but here are some things that you can kind of work on to make sure that your pictures are clean and sharp. 1, are you focusing and recomposing? Meaning, are you focusing on the center dot and then moving your camera focus? Or are you focusing on the center dot and not moving? Or are you not using the center focal point and you're moving your focal dots around? So if you're doing any number of these things and you feel like your focus is just off, or it sounds more like to you the problem is that the images aren't sharp enough, and this could just be that you need to take your editing one step farther and use a sharpening action. I have a very basic sharpening action. It's not the one that I give out in our workshops. It's just called a defog. And to do this defogging, you just go here into the filter to the unsharp mask here. You're going to set the amount to 20%, the radius to 60 pixels, and the threshold should remain at 0. And that's just sort of like a quick and dirty little just defog, take the haze away. So try that, Laura. Let me know if that takes some of that, what would you call it? Lack of clarity. See if it takes the lack of clarity down and makes it more clear and crisp and clean. Let me know. Okay, so let's go back to Photoshop. Here is yours. Here's where you began, and this is where we ended up, which is brighter. And then I think that some of your style is wrapped up in the vignette, which kind of brings your eye into the main focus of this photo, so that's great. Maybe just watch that the vignette doesn't get too black in all of these edges, because in my opinion, when the vignette gets real dark in these little corners, it's probably too strong. However, that's totally up to your style, your branding, and what your client will expect. All right. Okay, now we'll go to the second set. And on this set, you were concerned about the lighting. Your precise words are, you couldn't get the shot to glow. Okay, so let's look at the original straight out of camera and why we could maybe not get this shot to glow. Okay, so I can see from this leg right here that the light is coming from the left, your left. So what I would do to get that glow is I would backlight, meaning they're going to be facing over here and the sun is going to be back behind them, and that's how you get that glow. Step 2, again, you're going to watch that exposure. This one's underexposed too, and if you have that exposure correct and your backlighting, that is going to glow all on its own. So my advice on this photo to get the glow is to take a new angle, not choose the photo based on the background, but instead to choose it on the lighting. So yeah, I think this one is just mainly lacking glow because it's an open shade photo. It's not a backlit photo. And you can do that by having them stand here and face the opposite way. Not the way they're facing now, but basically it would be to their left that they would be facing. Let me see what else you say, Laura. It was rainy and dark. Couldn't get it to glow. I think you just need to overexpose on purpose using your exposure compensation. Your edit looks really nice, so you did a good job of saving it. And based on the color tone you gave it, it does feel nice and warm, much warmer. You can even make it feel even warmer by adding a little more red and a little more yellow and a little more exposure. Okay, but I like what you did. So we're going to go ahead and close that and move to picture 3, which, by the way, is my favorite. Okay, so here we have a photo which you and I both love. You say, I love this photo, but it seems a little blah and dark. What can I do to make it crisp? Your settings are at 1/400th of a second, ISO 320, f 3.2. Those are great settings. So if you are under the impression that it's a little dark, I would say maybe it is a little dark, but not much. What if we just go in and give it a levels punch like that? I would be happy to call that photo mine. It is a beautiful photo. Look at this. I like how it's bottom heavy, and I like that it's a vertical photo. It really brings my eye. Look at this nice composition, this circle of how they're just having a great time together here. That is awesome. I agree with you. This is an amazing photo. I just think it needed that little levels bump. And then if you'll go here and do that defog, I think you would have a nice clear photo. And I know that we can also do sort of like an S-curve if you like. I don't know if you've ever done that, but basically that's an S-curve. You go into curves, you bring this up, you bring this down, and you have a little bit more contrast. Have you ever done the S-curve? I don't know. Let me know. I don't think this photo needs much work. I think you really did nail it. The exposure is very adequate. It's just up to you if you want that pop into it. All right, Laura, let me make sure I answered all your questions. Just to sum up one more time, I think the darkness of the photo here and the darkness of the photo here is probably your camera exposing, and if you will just use that exposure compensation to knock it up a stop, maybe even 2 stops on this one, you'll get a better result right out of camera. Okay, Laura, I hope that helps. I'll see you next week.